September 8, 1944. London. The city was quiet for a moment. Then, out of nowhere, came a sound no one had ever heard before. A thunderclap, without warning. A fireball tearing through rooftops. No sirens. No chance to run. It wasn't a plane. It wasn't a bomb. It was something new. A weapon from the future. The first V-2 rocket had struck London. Hitler called it his Vergeltungswaffe 2, the weapon of vengeance 2. But history would remember it differently, not as the weapon that saved the Reich, but as the machine that launched humanity into the space age. Long before the war, there was a boy who dreamed of flying beyond Earth. His name was Wernher von Braun. Born into an aristocratic German family in 1912, he became fascinated with space travel after reading The Rocket into Planetary Space by Hermann Oberth. At 16, he built his first homemade rocket. It exploded spectacularly, but the dream survived. By the early 1930s, von Braun was a rising star in Germany's small community of rocket enthusiasts. But rocket science was expensive, and Germany's economy was broken. There was only one source of funding available: the military. In 1932, von Braun was recruited by the German Army Ordnance Department. He was told his rockets could one day deliver explosives farther than any artillery shell. It wasn't the space program he dreamed of, but it was a beginning. When Hitler rose to power in 1933, Germany began rearming in secret. Rocket research suddenly became a national priority. By 1937, von Braun's team had moved to a remote site on the Baltic coast, Peenemünde. Here, in isolation, engineers and scientists worked day and night. Their goal? Create a missile that could reach England and beyond. By 1942, they had built something extraordinary, a 14-meter-tall rocket capable of flying at 3,500 miles per hour, carrying a 1-ton warhead over 200 miles. It was powered by liquid oxygen and alcohol fuel, guided by gyroscopes, and designed to reach the edge of space before plunging down at supersonic speed. It was the first ballistic missile in human history. Von Braun called it the A4. Hitler renamed it the V-2. On October 3, 1942, a test rocket launched from Peenemünde roared into the sky. As the scientists watched, it rose higher and faster than anything man had ever built, and vanished into the clouds. For the first time in history, a human-made object had touched space. Von Braun smiled and whispered, "This is the dawn of a new age." But for Hitler, it was not about the future, it was about revenge. After the devastating Allied bombings of Peenemünde in 1943, production of the V-2 was moved underground to a vast tunnel complex near Nordhausen, codenamed Mittelwerk. There, tens of thousands of concentration camp prisoners were forced to build rockets by hand. They worked in darkness, starving, beaten, and dying by the thousands. Historians estimate that more people died building the V-2 than were killed by it. Von Braun, ever the engineer, visited the tunnels often, and later claimed he had no choice. But survivors remembered him walking past corpses, discussing technical details with guards. The line between genius and guilt had been crossed. In September 1944, as Allied troops advanced through France, Hitler ordered his wonder weapon unleashed. The first V-2 struck Chiswick, London, on September 8th. It destroyed an entire street in an instant. Unlike the V-1 buzz bomb did, the V-2 gave no warning. It traveled faster than sound. You never heard it coming. Over the next months, more than 3,000 V-2 rockets were launched against London, Antwerp, and Liège. Each left a crater the size of a house. By the war's end, they had killed over 9,000 civilians. And yet, strategically, they changed nothing. The rockets were too expensive, too few, too late. But their technology, their sheer power, astonished the Allies. The world had just witnessed the first space launch, disguised as a weapon. As Germany collapsed in 1945, the Allies knew the V-2 wasn't just a weapon. It was the key to the future. Whoever captured von Braun and his team would inherit the next generation of warfare and space travel. The Americans moved first, under Operation Paperclip. U.S. agents tracked down von Braun and over 100 of his engineers. They surrendered to American forces in Austria, bringing with them blueprints, test data, and dreams of spaceflight. The Soviets, meanwhile, seized the V-2 factory at Nordhausen and transported the remaining equipment and scientists to Moscow. The Cold War had not even begun, but the race for space had already started. In the years that followed, the V-2 evolved from a weapon of terror into a tool of exploration. In America, Wernher von Braun led research at White Sands, New Mexico, launching captured V-2 rockets to study the upper atmosphere. By the 1950s, he was working for NASA's predecessor, designing rockets not for war, but for the stars. His new dream, to send humans into space. Meanwhile, in the Soviet Union, engineers under Sergei Korolev built their own versions of the V-2, eventually creating the R-7, the rocket that launched Sputnik, the first satellite, in 1957. 2 decades earlier, that technology had bombed London. Now, it carried humanity beyond the sky. In 1969, when the Apollo 11 rocket lifted off for the moon, it was powered by the Saturn V, a direct descendant of the V-2 designed by the same man who once worked for Hitler. Wernher von Braun became a hero in America, a face of progress, a pioneer of space travel. But his past never disappeared. Photographs from the tunnels of Mittelwerk, testimonies from the survivors, and documents from Nazi archives told another story of thousands of slave laborers who never saw the sky they helped mankind reach. One survivor said, "We built rockets to go to the stars, but we lived in hell." Von Braun himself once admitted, "The rocket worked perfectly, except for landing on the wrong planet." It was meant as a joke, but the truth behind it was far darker. The V-2 rocket killed thousands, but its technology transformed the world. It gave birth to intercontinental missiles and to spaceflight. It divided the world into superpowers, but also united humanity in a common dream, to reach the heavens. The same flame that once burned cities would one day light the sky above the moon. In the final years of World War II, as Berlin burned, scientists at Peenemünde dreamed of reaching the stars, while prisoners in the tunnels of Mittelwerk died in the dark. From their hands came both the weapon of vengeance and the engine of exploration. The V-2 rocket was born of war, fueled by cruelty, and guided by genius. It marked the end of one age and the beginning of another. The age of rockets, the age of space. From the ashes of the Reich came the first step toward the stars, a reminder that human invention can lift us to the heavens or drag us into hell.